Greetings everyone, here is Lodrik again, and today we try to use and discuss this special tracker software a little more in depth, and also have a look on the upcoming airplanes I have under development and maybe why I choose these airplanes. Like I said before, there are many options, and you better try to focus on some planes and not try to produce everyone. You can do this, but it will be some logistical issue maybe in the end. Okay, first we can maybe go. Oops. Again, so what is now the situation? Let's check again. Now, under construction, in-game, this is now the in-game information, you can normally always order this or filter this for size or for type. Maybe we do this best for type. So you can see I have two facilities. They're producing per month. This is production per month. So in total 80 Zero Fighter A6M2 per month is the output. 80 airplanes. You can see these are the second generation of torpedo bombers for the Navy. I'm producing 10 plus 10, so 20 in total per month. The dive bomber, naval dive bomber, 15 per month. This is the Jack, this is a seaplane, scout, recon. You can use normally most of the time for search operation. This is the only seaplane, one engine I will produce. There are in total I think 5 or 6, we can check this later. But the Jack is, for me, this was the best. And also in reality, the Japanese produced this, I think, en masse. This was the number one airplane. The problem is only that guy is a little bigger and stronger, more heavy. So in reality, I think it was not possible to get this one on a submarine. And also the light cruisers, I think maybe they are too small to carry this kind of airplane. So in reality, you have really it is much more complicated. In this game it's all a little more simple, and so you can normally say, why not? Why I want to produce a small short scout plane if I have this one? I mean, it's not really, you can check this and compare this later, then you can see the difference. It's not like a this is a crazy good one and on all the rest is shitty. This is only the best out of them all. And later we also can get this. If I touch this, then you can see something. I touch this, and then this is more like this factory is producing now this airplane with 30 units per month. And on the right side we can get the information. This airplane is based on this H-33 engine. So you get first information what this airplane used for engine. Then you get here also all possible airplanes. You can see if it's only the name, like this one, the A5M4 Cloud, and there's no date behind, then it's ready to produce. If there is a date behind, and you can see it's always a future, means this is the original date. And in game, at that, if you don't have any R&D, that date the airplane will be ready for production. Means more or less the cloud we can produce now, we can switch this now to a cloud or to a zero, or we can change it to any R&D facility you can see here. This is related to the in-game options. So I must shortly maybe explain this, because some will maybe know this, some not. At the beginning of the game I asked Dojo how he won't play this game, and you have here more or less the fog of war must be on. If you don't make fog of war, then it's like a real demo game, only to understand the mechanics without any tactical and strategic thinking. That is only you want test something. So you will maybe say no fog of war, that you see everything, then you bring some units together because you won't see how this works. So this is only for demo. So advanced weather effects, I use some mod to have even better weather effects, but this is only for show. Okay, the most important is next is really the allied, and then here is called allied damage control advanced. So it's not only US, because normally I think it's a US damage control advantage, but in the game they say more or less, like, because we had this question before, not only the US or allied ship have this. So if this is a Dutch, a British, American, a Canadian, Australian, they all have this much better anti-fire, anti-flooding backup or repair forces on board their ships. I don't know, of course, still I think a small ship like destroyer have much less damage control units than a cruiser battleship or whatever, and the carrier. So, and after that we have this player defined upgrade is on. Normally I would always say this must be on, because it's for me a little strange to have this off. This means more or less that the player can choose what type of airplane the air wing will operate with. And to keep this off will make it very strict. Means the unit is a 0 unit, and that unit must have a 0. And at a certain point there is a possibility to upgrade it to a other 0 or some other airplane, but it is fixed. You can only choose upgrade yes or no. And this makes for me no sense, because this is a war game and I'm in command. I mean, you control this the whole industry, strategic, tactical point of view. I mean, you control the nation. So why I am limited to choose the historical part of upgrade for arm wing? Make no sense, because if I make it historical, then I also normally must say, okay, at the beginning of the game I cannot use my Burma army to help in Singapore, or I cannot reinforce the original Philippine invasion fleet with additional forces, because originally the Japanese did this, I think, as first at around 15th or 20th of January, that they sent reinforcements, because they realized they cannot defeat all the Americans in the Philippines so easily with the forces they had at the first 1 to 3 days. They sent more reinforcements, much more heavy siege equipment, more pioneers, all this stuff to break the enemy defensive lines. So this is the same for me, because and then you can make this continuously. So it's a game, it's your game, you choose it, you only start you start with the original equipment, but which way you won't go, it's your own choice. So, because it's still only a choice, you don't get anything additional. Your units will not get stronger, you don't have more. It is only you choose. So it's for me not a cheat, because for me that is totally normal. What you maybe can compare is like, so I would say this must be always on, because it will be crazy if not. And the Allied damage control, this was reality. And the, wait, here, this torpedo issue. This is a US Navy torpedo issue. This is off. Because they are not reliable. So means they are historical malfunction. So this is reality, and this is reality. You normally can say, okay, I want to have the good torpedoes or the normal Mark 14 from the first day without any issue, and not must wait 1.5 years. I think after half year, they starting maybe with 10 or 20% reliably chance, and every 6 months I think you get 20% more or 25% more. So I think after 1.5 years you have them at 100% more or less. But you can say, okay, I want from the start, so I will normally say here on, and then to balance this you can say, okay, then I have the same Allied damage control advantage, then I will set this off. This is reality, this is reality. And the surprise first turn is also on, because this is reality, because it was a surprise attack. But these three options, I would say, depending how you want balance different. If the Japanese player is very good and the ally is very bad, then maybe you say, okay, don't make surprise attack like a normal attack, like the Japanese sent already 24 hours earlier the mail out and say, Americans, we are now at war. That classic option. Okay, the only stuff is now is this R&D stuff, because this is maybe not realistic. The realistic R&D stuff means more or less I can switch between a factory and a lab tool always. I can change a factory is producing just zeros and say, okay, I don't want to produce more zeros. I want that you change now to a lab tool. You make R&D for the next generation of airplanes. Because this is in reality not the same. Industry and a research lab is not the same. It's really not the same. Yeah, you can of course say that the industry company, if it's big enough, have always R&D, but the tools are not the same normally. So, but at the end, Dojo said, because Dojo plays this game maybe 10 years or even more, and he told me that he never lost any game. And I never played any human opponent before. I only played twice or 3 times against the AI. I only play a lot of War in the East before, and POT2 and other stuff, much older stuff, but very similar stuff. And so I have experience with this mechanics, but not with this type of game. So at the end, Dojo say, do whatever you want. And I don't want to make it too crazy. But we start with this, and the 2 days this comes from Dojo, because he says he don't have so much time, and he cannot make every day a turn. So I say, okay, then we make 2 days. It's still acceptable. 3 days I think is not possible to play. Your navy units will run far too away without your orders, and I think the 2 days is still okay. So, and because of this R&D, this we must keep in mind now. Because the R&D allow us more or less now that we can switch here now always from production to R&D, and we can change from R&D to production. It is possible. If you don't have this activated, there is, so far I know, no way to switch it back. R&D tools, you have some R&D tools at the beginning, a lot of factories. You can change them, you can tell them, you can change what you want develop here. You can also increase the number. This is all normal. This has nothing to do with this the option. The option really only means you cannot change this back to R&D tool. But, and this is a big but, is even if you have this on off, means you have realistic R&D, you still can change from production to development if the airplane is the next generation of the same type you are now under production. Oh, this sounds very complicated, but to make it sure, or make it simple, let's say we go for type, and you need to make this, okay, this is the Oscar. The Oscar key 43 1C. We can touch this. Then we must scroll here down. And then you can see this is the key 43 line. The 1A is the first. This is more or less also only a prototype. This is the B type. We have some A's, but they are normally not good to fight. You can use them only for training. The B type can fight, but they are not so strong. I think they are compared to a buffalo, not more, never more. The 1C we have now under production, so you cannot see it here. So then the next is the 2A. The 2A will normally go online in November 42. So we must now check this. This is Meibashi. We have 30 factories. Now we say, I want to change this to R&D because this is future, this is not production, this will automatically change to R&D. We touch this. It's jump out of this list because it's not more production. We close this. We go to R&D. We go for size. And now you see this. This factory is now for the key 43 2A fully ready for development. And this is normally still possible even if you have if it's on realistic R&D, because this is a production chain. The game say more or less, this is not a new airplane for this factory, it's an upgraded airplane. So the change in the production line only very small. It's not a complete start from zero development stuff. This, you must accept this as a game rules. Upgraded and completely new developed airplanes. And now, only to show you, there's other stuff. Now you can say, you can touch this again. You can see this is now the 2A. Okay, you go down here again. You can see 1A, 1B, 1C. And the next is a 2B. May 43. Now let's do this. We touch this and say, I want, this is the next in the line. What will happen? I touch this. And what happened? You can see 43 2B, still 30 factories. So long the airplane is an upgrade in the same production line, you can move up this pattern everywhere you want to go up to the last airplane. And you will always keep your research facility at maximum power. Okay, now I do something else. If I say now, oh no, I don't need R&D, I won't have again production because I make a mistake. No, I won't go back to the 1C. Okay, make sure Meibashi 30 airplanes. I go back. Let's jump out because it's not more R&D. No, it's production. We go here, type, and Meibashi. then you can see this. This is the factory, because the 40 is other factory, and we do only have these two Oscar factories. You can see the 21. You can see two things. First, the factories are damaged. Secondly, they are not more 30. There's something missing. You can say, you can see that 9 out of 30 are missing. So 1/3 is nearly missing. So it's 30%. So I think it's something like 30% is missing. So you must keep this in mind. If you downgrade, always this goes in both directions. So at least if you change anything in the production, if you only keep it in the production, this also works with production. I can show you this. If this is now, oh no, better go with the 60 maybe. The 60. I just change this to cloud. You can see it jumps here from 60 to 42, and all are damaged. And you can repair only one factory per day. So first, after 42 days, the production is back online at 100%, but even not at the old 100%, not 60, it's only 42. So it is important to understand the chain of development and production of airplanes. That is very critical, because to produce 1 month nothing, or keep your production running at the best possibilities. So don't switch between types if it's not necessary, or sometimes it's not possible to avoid this. But if it's possible, try to keep a chain of production and development always clean. So, and that is a big problem of many Japanese players. You normally must more or less at the beginning of the game already know where you want to go to get a real bonus. The other option is that you say, you don't care R&D. You can completely forget R&D and say, I don't care the R&D. I only make production of engine and airplanes, more or less. But this means more or less that you always get the airplane first at the original date. And I can tell you, in 43, the Americans, they have already airplanes, they outlast the Japanese airplanes. And it will only get more worse. There's no point more to turn this around. The only way to keep up with the Allies is R&D. So you must really think about this. Okay. So, and I also want to remind you that you always can see the type of engine is used is here. We can order this for type, and then we can show you again. The 0 needs a 35, and the Oscar needs a 35. This is the main Navy air fighter. This is the main Army air fighter. They use both the same engine type. This is a standard engine type. So to get this engine fast up to 500 is for me normally a must. You must get this 35 up. You can see we are still only at 214. The problem is, of course, if you increase the production of an airplane at the same time in the engine output, if you keep it, if you produce one more engine and one more airplane, then you still don't get a more in your pool. So you must normally increase the output of engines much more or much faster, and maybe say, okay, I don't want to produce so many airplanes. But especially at the beginning of the game, you have only a handful of zeros and Oscar 1C. So the first months normally, and I also did this, I ramp up both equally, more or less. I ramp up the production of zeros and Oscars 1Cs, but I also increased the output of 35. Now I upgraded 3-4 air wings with the next generation of like the zeros and 1Cs, the Oscars. So I maybe can say now, okay, I will maybe start to Here you can see I have 50 zeros in backup. I can now upgrade more air wings, but normally I only must upgrade air wings they are fighting. So everything what is in Japan or Manchukuo, Korea, in their training units, it doesn't matter if you have the super old cloud or the up to, I mean, their best to zero. For a training pilot, it really doesn't matter. You can give a training pilot the most shitty airplane. So long he can fly with the airplane, it's okay. He need only the experience, how you operate the airplane, how you evade an attack, how you dive, and how you climb best, and all this stuff. But any airplane can teach you this. Okay. This again for this engine and the development part, because I think that is a really a must to understand. This is the main big difference for the Japanese, and the only way to catch up, or at least don't that the Americans not run away with the technology level too far. And the other stuff is this heavy industry points. This is this stuff. Heavy industry produce heavy industry points, and everything what you produce with Navy ships, Navy shipyards, repair stuff, new units, repair units, I think they all consumes heavy industry points. So if I touch this, oh no, this I don't want to touch. I want to touch the other one. I touch this again. You can see here the choice of airplane, R&D or production, and you can also see here because many maybe don't know this, but here you upgrade your facilities. It's better to upgrade here. You can choose 1 or 10. I mean, if I go 1 down, then it's 10. This is a 1, this is a 10, and this is, I think, always double. Let's see. This is always a double. Then it will give you the information. If you want to increase the facility output by additional 42, you have to pay 4,200 supplies, 420 heavy industry points, and 420 guys. And then this will only tell you, this I think is part of the engine. And then don't forget, you must say always expand now. So I touch this now. You can also see here is always information. I mean, the heavy industry, all this stuff, the heavy industry points and the manpower are pool points. Pitifully, the game don't tell you this. They don't must be on site. They are always on site because the pool is everywhere. The only thing what is really must be on site is supplies. So you can see in this base we have now 58,000 tons of supplies and 5. We say this now, and then normally this must be down to 54,000 roughly. So type. Zack. You can see. Then we produce this. But also keep in mind, this is only the this price you pay is only to get the groundwork ready. The factory still must ramp up, and for ramp up you also pay points. Don't let me, I really don't know more. It was 100 or also 1,000. Let me check. I don't know more. Repairs on. Here you can see this. Where's the factory? Here are the clouds. You can see here also the number inside is always damaged, and this number is always ready. Is useful, is in production. So this 10 are still repairing, and here's now nothing put under everything's under construction or repair, and nothing is ready to produce. And repair is on, and you can see you can repair one factory per day, so it needs roughly 3 months. And every factory you want to repair, you must pay 1,000 supplies again. And I think is also not somewhere, if I remember, I think, and you must also have a minimum of 10,000 supplies on site the base to start even repair. I think if you have less than 10,000 supplies, the repair more or less will not start, because the game says this first 10,000 supplies are emergency supplies, there for the fighting forces, but not for industry repair and maintenance. So at least 10,000 supplies, and each factory again 1,000 more. And I think this is the standard price, because everything I think costs 1,000. You can see everything is 1,000 supplies. So supplies are really important to have in your base. This also means more or less that before you want to increase some production too crazy, you must also make sure that you have enough supplies on site. Okay, I think this is first maybe again enough for this. I mean, this I hope is make now more sense, that you can switch. We switch from production to R&D for free, because it's the same the same production line, and then we change back from R&D to production. But it was not most this is a one-way street. You can always go only forward but never backward. So we change from the actual production to the next generation of R&D, and it was for free. We change back from this next generation R&D back to the up to date production. Still the game says this is a step back. So it will not be ready to use, it will be damaged, and you lose 30%. So a double kick in the butt. So it is really important that you keep this in mind. So maybe you can stop upgrade, but normally if it's under production you can also keep the upgrade on, because normally the next generation is always better. But at the beginning of the game you still need some time. There's nothing really coming so crazy fast. Then they are all a little more far away. You can see this is all normally here the first coming mid of 42 you get the next generation of airplanes, and normally I keep it on most of the time, but okay, this is R&D stuff. And also, okay, the only other stuff is here. Normally what you can do is, at the beginning I forgot this, but you can more or less, after you choose what your factory's R&D you want, because I choose some stuff, I pick a lot out and I keep only what I want. You can normally make the size always to 30. Let's try this now here. Oh no, this is always the same. No, you must touch this. You can still choose here what you want, and because it's only a 1, you can only expand by 1, but you can do this again and again and again. So you still pay. Now you can see it's first cheaper, only 100 supplies, 10 HD and 10 manpower. We can do this now. Then you can see it is not ready. And this is not per day. I think there's only a chance per day. So if I think 10%, but can be even less. The chance is 10% maybe for each factory per day to repair. So if you have 7, then you have 7 times 10% chance to hit, to increase this number, roughly. Okay, we go now here. We go factories. And here is this 1 ready and 1 still under repair. Then you still must pay here. But the costs are only, so the cost to create the factory is only 10%. The repair cost is still the same. And let's say if you can, in the moment the date is reached, the R&D factory will automatically change from R&D to be a real factory. Means if you put all R&D, and of course, and what is not so far repaired is still damaged. But the original price to buy this original factory is still only 10%. So you can more or less say I put a lot of R&D stuff inside, then you pay only 10%. You still must repair it later, but it's still cheaper for you. Then you have later, you can get some industry stuff cheaper. That is maybe a little gamey, but I don't know really. The problem is if you ramp up the R&D stuff too much at the beginning, the R&D will never work for you, because the R&D will only work for you if there's nothing damaged. So there's not much R&D stuff really going on so far, because they are most of them are still damaged. But, and also next I would say, everything over 30 make no sense. The R&D maximum is 30. Everything over 30 will not produce additional R&D bonus for you. So, but this means more or less normally, maybe I will do this in the future, I ramp up everything what I see here up to a maximum of 30. So, like here is 22 plus 2 means there are 6 more industry possibility. Then I ramp everything up to 30. This is normally the best you can do, but at least you don't must go over 30, okay? I think this is now really first enough of this. Okay, and we want also go with the tracker. I think about the situation so far, I explained most of the stuff. Maybe I can only explain some tactical stuff. Again, like here. I normally always use, I mean, these are the heavy units and this is a light unit. You need at least the same number of light units than you have heavy units, but always better double them or triple or even more. And next is the heavy units. I normally only carry the heavy units. I try to get always 2 together of the same type. You can see this is a Fuso class battleship, and this is the original Fuso class battleship. So they are 2 of the same type, only different name. And the thinking is more or less that you can operate with 1 unit, but 2 is always a point that, I mean, you can go with more, but then you if you go with 3 or 4 battleships in 1 unit, then you have only 2 battleship units in total. I mean, battleship fleets. If you have, I think Japan have 8 battleships, so you can make 2 very strong battle fleets, or I operate them always in a pair, so I have 4 battleship fleets. And also, a third of the time the battleship fleet is normally in the harbor to fix ammunition, rearming, damage control, repair, and all this stuff. A third of the time they are floating around and sailing up and down. So it's up to the player's choice. You won't have something very strong, but then you have only a very limited number, but you try to balance it. And this 2 is for me the lowest number, because if a fight happened, 2 units, they fight each other, and if maybe one guy is a little unlucky, like last time the heavy cruiser, then he can try to fall back. I don't know exactly if the game really 100% simulates this, but in theory it is more or less 1 unit gets damaged, okay, then he try to fall back, and the other unit will hold the line. If you have only 1 heavy unit, you cannot fall back, because the enemy will always focus on this 1 unit, because there's nothing else to stop them. But if you have 2 heavy units, at least in the theory, is like, if the Fuso gets hit, the Fuso try to fall back, but the Yamashiro try to hold the line and keep the enemy in distance. Or the enemy must rush in, and then the distance will close in, and then the battleship, of course, score more hits. I mean, but this is depending on the speed. I mean, if the enemy is much faster, they can always close the distance. But this is why I try to have 2 heavy units of similar or the same type. So I also don't support the thinking of having Heavy cruisers and battleships together. They are normally not a good match. The distance a battleship is fighting and the distance a heavy cruiser is fighting is not the same. But heavy cruisers have punching power, so I normally say I have battleship task force and I have heavy cruiser task force. I even have light cruiser task force, and I always add destroyers. I would also never make real only destroyer task forces. At least I will always give for a destroyer task force. You can always give only one light cruiser. That one light cruiser is always good against enemy destroyers, and it have a scout plane. A destroyer have never a scout plane, so this is also in reality. You normally always have a destroyers and a destroyer leader. Most of the time a destroyer leader is like a 20% or 30% bigger destroyer of the same type with additional equipment, radar or navigation equipment and other stuff. Here in the game you don't have this destroyer leader stuff, so I would say use a light cruiser, or you completely erase this stuff and say you have only battleship fleets and cruiser fleets, and the rest of the destroyers you use for convoy duty or as for your carrier. You also don't have unlimited destroyers, and some of the destroyers of the Japanese navies are very old. They have a limited range. They are normally not good for battle operations. Yeah, I don't know if I have it here. This is okay, but this is now 49%, so this has an endurance for 4,000. That is okay, but some of the Japanese destroyers, this is a 1,500 ton destroyer. This is already a small destroyer with only 6 points. I think the smallest Japanese destroyer have only endurance of 2,500. If I remember right, they are here with the carriers. Right? Here. This one. Yeah. No, I think. This is not the percentage, this is the percentage, yeah. So, they have endurance of 2,500. This means more or less with this speed they operate, they can go 62 hex. I operate them more or less in cruise speed with 15 knots and not with max speed. The max speed I normally use only to run away. I always try to operate with mission speed. Mission speed is, I think, that the task force commander can choose to increase the speed to max speed, but he normally try always to use, if not necessary, always the standard speed. This saves fuel consume and will not damage the engines and the systems. If you run something with, you still get system damage over time, but engine damage is very less. But if you run with max speed, the system damage and also the engine damage will increase much faster. So it's like, it's the same like if you run the car with a standard rotation of your engine with 2,000-3,000, or if you always go to the limit of 4, 5 or 6,000, then of course you must have much faster oil change and maintenance service. And this is the same for a ship. Okay, but here only maybe some ask this flight. Here now, this was the reason I say I go now with full speed, because the full speed is 6 and the distance here is 12. So if the engine not will break down, then we can go in 1 day to this harbor, and then we have a full day already to start firefighting. In this situation I would say the engine is not a problem. The system will damage, maybe will go up to, in worst case, up to 70, but I must get rid of the fire. So the priority here is the harbor, because harbor means much better firefighting. And the ship is it is already so damaged that I must lay it down to port side. And a little more damage will not change much more. I want only get rid of the fire, because before the fire is not over, I cannot go to any port. And you also, any repair can first start after a fire is extinguished. So get rid of fire is most important, always for a ship. Okay, I think, the problem is only now I have nearly no time more. But okay, we can go shortly for the tracker again. Okay. Let me close this first. Okay. One of the best tools, or one, let's say this, at the beginning of a game, you can use this tool normally for the aircraft, to compare aircraft. You can compare it with American aircraft. This is complicated, but normally what you can also do, I mean, you can always try first to find out what airplane you really want to go. So you have Navy, let's say Navy. And I go say fighter, show me fighter. And then we can see already, this is easy to compare. This is the old generation, this is the next generation. Then we can see, keep the speed, firepower, and distance. We must get a feeling for this big, and also durability is more or less how many hit points this airplane have. Because the armor will only reduce the damage, but you still have only this kind of hit points. And then you can compare this now. And you can, the point is that you then must think about what you really want to go. The zeros are, like if this is our standard fighter, then we can think about what airplane we want to have next under production. Because if you start a production, you must run this production a little longer. You must produce enough airplanes that you can change the whole group, or how many groups you want to change. And all this stuff. And before I continue here, the best information, and this is why the tracker is good, is in-game there is no information what is a production chain. What is the next airplane under production? And this you can see here. Here you can see upgrade. This is the point. From the zero, every factory of a zero, the next upgrade is a Zenbaku. This is it's a torpedo, no, how do they call this? A fighter bomber, yes, a fighter bomber. So, and the real next zero, this is normally, maybe you can think, oh, why, but this is a game. The game says this is the next generation. The problem is only if we go for this type. Wait, then we must go to fighter bomber, and then we have this one. This is normally the next one. So if you want to change your factories, an R&D tool, when you have a zero factory, you normally cannot go to the A6M3. No, you must go to the A6M2 Zenbaku. The problem is that this is now 44, so far away. But it tells you at least what is the next upgrade. So you can upgrade to this unit, and normally what we show before, then you can go from this A6M5B. You can go for this unit, but then you already in mid of 44. And so you can always see the chain of upgrades. And from this A6M5C, no, this AM5, this is the next generation. So then we must go back to fighter. This is the C edition. You can see. I mean, this is the B, this is the C, and the next is, and also the last plane in this production line is this one. And then you can see this is now the last one, and then it's over. This is the last airplane, the end of this upgrade line. But like I said last time, the only problem with this fighter is it's first very late. Yeah, it's faster, but not much faster. And then you have always this engine problem. This is the H33. This is not more H35, so it's under. So you must have from this type of air engines enough to get the booster to double your R&D stuff. And the other problem is, okay, you can say that, okay, this is the end of line, maybe nice, you can always change your factories, and don't waste anything, but the real only problem is this airplane. And this airplane is much faster, more firepower, more hit points, climb faster. The range is the same, but the big problem is really, this is really much faster. So you normally want this one. This is the best carrier-based fighter in the game for the Japanese. This is equal. Of course, this is the other engine, but the H-43 you can also use in other high-end airplanes. But this is up to the player's decision. If we try to go this line up to the end of the 0A6, or if we say, oh, I won't go for the A7. And yeah, there is only this one unit. There is nothing before and there's nothing after. This is a one type production line. There's only one type. You don't have a chain. You only produce this once. Okay, this is the only option. This is more or less simple. You can say I go to 0 and I try to reach this one. Or I would say, no, I go up to the A6 M5C, because this is also, you can compare this, and this is why you have this to compare. You can compare these two units and then you can say a little faster, but here more range. The climbing is the same, altitude is also similar, this is all similar. And this have also more firepower. So more or less this airplane, yeah, okay, this is the focus for this airplane is more maneuverable, but yeah, and it's faster. So this is of course better because there's still 1 year difference. But if I compare this with this airplane, the gap is bigger. And this is the last of the H-35. Player can choose. You can choose, I go for this one, I go for this one, or you say, no, this is the last airplane I want produced. You can also still say, this is the end of my production. I will only go up to this point and produce this machine non-stop. And I will not start and invest resources and shut down this production, because normally you must choose. I produce this airplane or I try to rush for this one. If I try to rush for this one, I must shut down at least some part of my factories to increase the R&D tools. Or you wait up to 8 or 45, but then the game is over. I mean, normally. So, yeah. Okay, I can explain more again, but I think, let me check something first, roughly, because I am a little busy. Give me some time. Oh, come on. Okay, yeah, 7 minutes. Okay, and this is from the Japanese Navy side. Okay, I can explain maybe some other unit what is important. Because many, we had this, the float plane. We go both for float plane. This is our jet. This is a unit I will say I will produce this one. Then you can see first there's an upgrade. The upgrade is not crazy, but we can check it compared. First, this is very late in the game, and it's normally, you can see the stacks they're the same. You can see they still use the same engine. So what really changed is you get a 20mm gun. I mean, this is nice for submarine hunting. If you use this for sub hunting, you go low level like 1000 or 100. You make a low level sub hunting, and a 20mm gun is still possible to damage the surface or the deck of the submarine. So it gets at least some system and some floating damage. I mean, don't think about that. You can sink a submarine this stuff easily, but at least you can if you find it, you can damage it 2-3 points, and the next time 2-3 points, and also these guys can still transport for 60 kilogram, and maybe if one of the bomb can hit, this will be much more damage for a submarine. But the most important is that you get this radar. This float plane at least can get radar. So this is a long one. Normally it is nice to have. At least you can upgrade, but okay, don't get so crazy. But what other choices we have? This airplane, the most important is normally the range. These are scout planes, so the most important is normally the range. Oh my god, 8-3. So this see, then this one. This is nice. This is a 0, but the problem is this is very late in the game. You can switch to this airplane if you want, but the next problem is this is the H-32, the other engine type, and if there's a service ring. These units, if they break down, they need a much longer time to repair, and the maintenance needs longer. So far I understand, I think it's if this unit go in a maintenance, it needs 1 day to finish the maintenance. If this unit go in maintenance, it needs 3 days to finish the maintenance. But I think there's also a little depending on how much support units you have nearby. So, but if this is on a ship, I really don't know. I think then I think it will be standard service. Then you have this unit, is also shorter range. And this unit, they all start at the beginning of the war, but they all have less range. And for me, range is the most important. There is a reason why the Japanese produce this always, if they can. This is the number 1 airplane for them. Okay, and this was the explanation why I choose this float plane. So then you can maybe also say, okay, and what is with a level bomber? Level bomber. This is a Nell. This is one of our 2 standard naval bombers, and you can see this is upgrade to the Nell 3. This is the end. There's only, you start with this one. There was before the M1, but I think the game not even have this one. No, they start immediately with the M2. Yeah, because I think the M1 was only prototype. They not really make mass production. So this is the first real production of this airplane. This is this real second generation, and you can see that the range will change from 15 to 21. They don't have drop tanks, but so you can transport a torpedo up to 21, because extended range normally cannot transport torpedoes. In that moment you would switch to 250 kilogram bombs. But and also extended range always, then the engines suffer more. The airplane must have faster maintenance. You have more op losses. The pilots have higher fatigue, must rest more, all this stuff. So I normally, this is a emergency situation, I will activate this, but normally try to always operate in the normal range. Okay, and the other stuff you can see, this is a faster. Okay. This is the same, they still have no armor, so if they fight against anything, they will burn always easily. But the big change is the radar. This unit you cannot equip radar. This unit I think, but first I think in this radar will go online first, I think in March or February 44. So this is far away. and this is hard locked. You cannot change this. You get this radar first at that day, but you can get this radar, and this will of course make it much more easier to hunt submarines. So you can normally use this, especially with this range. You can have a range of hunting of 10, because it's 21. Half of this is normally 10.5, but the game always round down. So you have a range of 10. We have radar. You give them bombs. You don't need the torpedoes to hunt for submarines, and then they will go very low on the surface and fly, and they try to use their radar to find the submarines and then surprise them, and then they kill. So, because the problem is, this is not a frontline fighter. Already now you suffer a lot of losses if you not have enough fighters support, and there's one fighter, he shut down one bomber, 2, 3, 4, one fighter. So I don't really be a big fan of this. This is better a base protection intercepting unit for anti-enemy naval stuff. So, okay, and I think this is first enough. The only other stuff, but then I think next time we can talk about Betty, because Betty have a long chain of production, but I never go this way. Already this bomber is for me the last in production. Normally the next one, oh no, I think it's, yeah. You can see this is what is now under production, and this is the next generation. You can see this here. So it is the next, but it's coming first so far away, so you must still wait a lot of time, and you get nearly nothing for this. You still have no armor. Yeah, you can have guns, but it makes no sense. If you don't have armor, you can a bomber need armor if you want to really fight against fighter. At least, you need some kind of armor. So, and then you can go this line up, and you line up. The Japanese always try to install more and more equipment. And at a certain point, right, this is already, I think, the last generation. Here they say now, okay, we understand we must put armor on this stuff. But this is the end of 44. So I say thank you, but this is shit. I will go with the Francis. The Francis is a fast bomber, similar to the Ju-88, I think. It can also transport a torpedo, and it have armor. This is really a fast bomber. They don't care so much to fight with the enemy fighter. They only try to not get shut down in the first moment, and then only go fast in, bomb the target, throw the torpedo in the water, and then try to evade the battle at all. And this is, I think, you must only check. This is P1Y2 is now the next. So this one. This is the next generation. We can upgrade to this one. Then we lose some speed, but we get radar. And this is another engine type. This is the high power. This is the best engine the Japanese can produce, the 45, and this is a cheaper, older generation I produce now. Is what the Betty is using now. So you can produce this one, and then you can upgrade to this, but it's normally, I don't know if it's really so much better, because normally the value is not going big up. What you can see is the service. This is why. This is a super complicated engine, and this is a super simple engine. Okay. But you have also the option go for 3. But then this use some rocket. This is like, other topic. So now I stop first. We can talk about more of this if you want again, but not more today. And I hope this was interesting for you all. Thank you all. Bye bye.